this afternoon. Just would love to hit on 3 or 4 different things with you. Let's start, though, with what everybody's talking about today, I think, and that's some of the comments that Brian Kelly made about portal, NIL, recruiting defensive linemen. What was your take on that? We spent a good bit of time on it earlier in the show.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to give you guys the soundbite that you want, and I think a lot of this is really new for a lot of people. And so I think we all have these perceptions built up in our brains of what everything means to everybody. And I don't think that we all talk about these things the same way. I don't think a lot of coaches use the exact same verbiage for a lot of things that they're referencing or talking about. Listen, I've heard some people who I know that I trust, that I like, that I feel like know college football, and they're going on their shows today asking questions like, why is Brian Kelly against NIL? You know, well, if Brian Kelly's going to play this no NIL game, he's not going to get any players. And I don't think that if that's the stance you're taking on this, I don't think you have any idea of, like, what he's doing or what he was talking about. I think what Brian Kelly was trying to say was, we don't specifically want to go to a guy and say, this is how much we have. Are you willing to take it and come to school here? It's not that LSU players don't make money in NIL. It's not that he's not allowing it. It's not that they're not trying to do it. But I think he wants people to come be a part of his program that are interested in other facets of it, that, you know, maybe their personality is a fit. Maybe, you know, schematically they fit in better to what they want to do. Maybe they want to go there because they like the staff, or they like Baton Rouge, they like the uniform, whatever it is. I think he's just trying to say, when we're not you think about it, when you shop for something, that is strictly transactional. That's all it is. You pick out what you want, you give them your credit card, you buy it. I mean, hell, now you go to a link on Instagram, you click it, and you use Apple Pay, and it's shipped to you, you know, the next day. Sure. So I think what he's just trying to say is, we are not running a strictly transactional operation here. And everybody just kind of runs with that, and they make it their own, and they think they know exactly what he's talking about. And I didn't talk to Brian about it, but honestly I don't think I need to, because I know he's got some players on that team that made good money in NIL last year. So, and I think it's very similar with what we're about to start talking about at Boise. You know, I don't think that they're saying that you are not allowed to make any money in NIL your freshman year at all. I think, and maybe just a lot of people don't know exactly how this works, but I think what he's saying is, what we have in our collective that we divvy up between all the players every year, which essentially would be a salary, so let's just call it that, the salary portion of the money that they have, they are probably not giving that to freshmen their first year. And I think there are some strategic reasons that you do that, because if you overspend and those guys transfer, I mean, that's a wasted investment. I mean, you just gave guys $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 to use your facilities and then go play somewhere else. So I don't know if that's going to work long term. You know, I think there's some other schools that are trying to do that. They're just not saying it. But, you know, I think that there's not one way that we can talk about all this stuff, because there's so many coaches that are doing it different ways and talking about it in different ways and using different phrases and terminology, that we got to do a little bit better job, I believe, of trying to understand that there are a lot of different ways that this works.
Okay, I can appreciate that, and appreciate everything that you said about Brian Kelly, but they needed help on the defensive line, and they didn't get it. So is that mismanaging resources? Because there were, I know defensive linemen are hard to come by.
No, it's losing. That's all it is. They lost. I mean, it's just no different than a game.
Okay.
I mean, you tell me like how many scary defensive linemen signed other places this offseason in college football.
Well, I hope I know of one, but we'll have to see it on the field.
Ole Miss got a good one. Oklahoma got a good one. But, I mean, there weren't like 10 or 15 really good defensive linemen floating around this offseason. Yeah. And if somebody wants to say, well, don't you just go get somebody? Yeah, probably. You probably needed to, yeah. But depending on, you know, how you approached them, when you approached them, if you thought that was going to be your fallback plan, so you didn't make a strong offer to begin with, and then that person had moved on. I mean, there's a lot of ways that things can go south.
Yeah.
So, maybe he had a poor plan. Maybe I will tell you this. People who know a lot more about NIL than I do told me that it was, the kid, Demonic Williams that went to Oklahoma and another player who I don't even know his name. Apparently that was a done deal to LSU. So if you thought you had, the number 1 and the number 4 defensive lineman in the portal, and that was a done deal, whatever they were ranked, I have no idea. I don't know how people rank kids in the portal, specifically that haven't played. But if you thought that was over and that was done and you had the money put aside for it and they, for whatever reason, just decided to go somewhere else, I mean, you going to go get a kid from the Sun Belt, or are you going to get a kid from FCS, which apparently now they've just done? I don't know. I don't know I don't know what your alternate plan is there. So that's where I think if we're going to be mad at Brian Kelly for something, we should probably be mad at him for just point blank losing, which is, in my opinion, what he did. It'd be no different than, a 5-star kid from Jackson and he chooses Mississippi State over Ole Miss, or vice versa, or he goes to Alabama and doesn't go to either Mississippi school. So I just think that this is like the part of the dawn of the new era of college football and recruiting battles, and sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you're going to lose. It's not that he said, hey, there's no NIL to be had here, so no defensive lineman wanted to go there. Like, that's just not the way that this went down. He's not playing some different game than everybody else. It's just he got beat, and he had a poor strategy with how he attacked it.
Visiting with Cole Cubelic, college football analyst, SEC Network, ESPN. He's on Jocks every morning alongside his radio partner, Greg McElroy. We were in Starkville a couple of weeks ago with some time to process Mississippi State's spring game and the conversations that we had with some of their coaches. Give Bulldog fans a couple of things to be excited about, and then maybe something that they should be concerned about.
I would be excited about the offense right now. I'd be excited about Blake Shapen. I thought the way that he operated the offense, and I try to use that term because if you use manage the offense, people are automatically going to think that that's negative and that the guy's just not a good player. But I don't have a problem with a game manager. I think if you manage games well, you put your team in probably a pretty good situation most of the time to go win that game. But he was really smooth with some of the reads, and there are going to be a lot of reads in that offense, whether it's zone read handoff, pulling the ball in and out of the mesh, whether it is an RPO, whether or not to pull it, whether or not to throw it. I mean, he's going to have to make a lot of decisions, and that's one of the things that I needed to see from that position in that spot was, how clean are you in that decision-making process? I thought he did a good job. I think the receiver group right now is a little underrated. I think they have a chance to provide some juice, some electricity, some explosive plays, and I thought the offensive line is a little bit ahead of schedule. Looks a little bit better than I kind of thought that they would. It's hard to go into it with a real expectation because it's so new. I mean, it's almost all new players that hadn't been there, and it's a new scheme. It's a different scheme, but it's one that I think the adaptability to it is going to be a little bit easier than it was a year ago with what was attempting to happen. So that's where I would start. I don't think running back is going to be a position of strength. I think tight end has a chance to be solid, like real solid, a good tight end room. And that offense doesn't really go until you have a good tight end. I mean, that's where a lot of the matchups come in the Jeff Lebby offense. So I don't – if the starting quarterback stays healthy, I think Mississippi State will have a good offense this year. I do have some concerns about the defense, the numbers, the amount of rushers that they have. I think you have one edge rusher right now that would scare me, but I think he's light, and I'd be a little bit concerned about him holding up for an entire season. And then I think probably just the overall depth defensively. I mean, you lose two of the most productive linebackers in conference history. Like, you're not just plugging and going. But you do have some guys that were able to sit back and watch them perform and kind of see how they operated, so that's a little bit of an advantage. But I'd be excited about the offense. And I'd be excited about a couple of defensive linemen up front that I think have a chance to have good years.
It's going to be interesting to see. Cole, always appreciate your time. Good catching up, and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Enjoyed it, man. We'll talk again soon.
Cole Cubelic joining us on the Farm Bureau guest line. Check out favorites.com and go with the home team, Mississippi Farm Bureau. Not necessarily groundbreaking stuff on the Mississippi State, but maybe on the offensive side, a little bit of confirmation bias and kind of what we've been talking about in terms of defense, depth, lost production, replacing some of those guys, new system, all of the things that